Good morning. Welcome to today's Honors Class News. I'm your wonderful anchorman, Leonardo Ruiz, and my team of reporters consists of Alanys, García, Andrea, Segura, and Eric Sánchez. In today's news, we'll be talking about different ways we can view racism in our modern-day society. We can inform ourselves about the recent arguments made against the Black Lives Matter movement to try and discredit it, and how people can mistakenly propagate racism in our day-to-day cycle to generate concern and diminish racial hatred in our world. Now, let's see what Andrea Segura has to say about this. Over to you, Andrea.
Thank you, Leonardo. A way we can view racism nowadays is by cultural appropriation or cultural misappropriation, which occurs when a person from one culture adopts the fashion, the trends, and the styles of another culture. This can be harmful if the culture they're appropriating from is one to be known as historically oppressed. A way you can prevent this is by asking if what you're borrowing, is it something stereotypical or is it something religious or sacred like a Native American headdress, and then ask yourself if you are using this in a jokingly or funny way. Now that Halloween is coming up, this is one of the months where we see a lot of cultural misappropriation in costumes like Rastafaris, Gypsies, and Native Americans. Each of these outfits plays into the stereotypes that have led to the misunderstanding and mistreatment of these people. You can learn to culturally appreciate instead of appropriating it by understanding the culture you're borrowing from, including its history of oppression and marginalization. Thank you, and back to you, Leonardo.
Thank you for your input, Andrea. Now let's see what Eric Sánchez has to say. Over to you, Eric.
Hello, I'm going to be talking about the Black Lives Matter movement and what the problem with saying all lives matter is. Well, of course, all lives are supposed to matter, and given that very truth, Black lives matter. However, to many of the black population, it does not feel that way, since getting killed by police is a leading cause of death for young black men in America. It does not feel like all lives matter when black people are 2.5 times more likely to be killed by police than white people, according to a study conducted by Rutgers University School of Criminal Justice. It does not feel like all lives matter when a black man can be killed by police over $20. It is beyond disturbing. Like in the case with George Floyd, it does not feel like all lives matter when a plea for help is ignored by the very people sworn to protect and serve. The sad thing is, this is not the first time this has happened. Practically every year, it happens again. So people from all races and backgrounds have joined the movement to remind people that Black Lives Matter. Now, responding to that cry for justice, that cry for equality, with all lives matter, is like saying things are already just, things are already equal. And we all know that it's not true. Sure, we've come a long way thanks to the many people who stood up and cried and prayed and marched for a better day in the past. But the march toward better continues in communities all across the world with one simple message: Black Lives Matter.
Absolutely right, Eric. Now let's see what Alanys García has to say.
Thank you, Leonardo. As our partner previously mentioned, the black community is still heavily targeted by systematic racism. Hence the push for the Black Lives Matter movement, since to this day they're still fighting for basic human rights. A fight against racism that they experience on the daily that may come in ways like microaggressions. For example, you're eating at a restaurant and a black woman comes in. She may be your friend, she may be your stranger, but you decide to give them a compliment. You start by saying, "Oh, you look pretty for a black woman." By saying that, you're insinuating that on the daily, black women are not seen as pretty or beautiful. You then proceed to touch her hair and treat it like it's something abnormal. That's already 2 counts of microaggressions right there. You can make that person feel uncomfortable and experience an indirect type of racism that can cause a toll on their mental health, since this is typically what microaggressions cause on a person. Next time, think twice about what you have to say and the ways you act towards people, specifically the black community. Now, back to you, Leonardo.
Thank you so much, Alanys. Now, to top it off, let's do a recap on what we learned today thanks to our genius reporters. Firstly, we learned that oppressed cultures are not meant to be appropriated just for our liking. Secondly, we learned that the Black Lives Matter movement is really important because it calls out the injustices of our society, not like All Lives Matter, which only wants to alleviate these same injustices against black people. And finally, we learned that many habits we may have are really microaggressions, so really need to be alert of our actions. That will be all. Thank you for your time, and we'll see you next time on Honors Class News.